Welcome to Beyond Hormones, the Business of Wellness, the podcast for hormone and functional medicine providers who want a thriving, predictably profitable practice and maybe a little less stress along the way. Hi, I'm your host, Jody Layne, and I've worked with lots of clinics in marketing, sales, and business development, and I have seen what works and what doesn't. And here's what I believe. Hormone and wellness care should be available to everyone who wants it. And while providers know the medicine, many struggle with the business side of their cash practice. And that's where I come in. See, this podcast is here to share real strategies, real stories, things you can implement in your practice right away. So I am so glad you're here. Come on, let's go. Hey, everybody. If you're a hormone or wellness provider, then you already know this fact. You can optimize hormones, you can dial in peptides, you can clean up labs, and you can still watch patients struggle. Why? Because unresolved stress lives in the nervous system. And until now, it's been almost impossible to measure or manage in real time. Well, my guest today is someone who is working to change that. Please let me introduce Mike Dannheim. He's a longtime tech entrepreneur, executive coach, and the founder of Sensie, a platform designed to make mental and emotional well-being measurable. Using technology we carry in our pockets already. Sensie helps identify hidden stress patterns, clear them in the moment, and build real psychological resilience. In this conversation, we're going to talk about why stress is not the enemy, but actually intelligence. How unresolved stress becomes illness over time, what most wellness clinics are missing when it comes to nervous system health, and how providers can integrate mental well-being into a proactive, whole person care model. If you care about longevity, patient outcomes, and building a clinic that truly supports well-being, this is a conversation you're not going to want to miss. All right, let's go ahead and dive in. All right, well, welcome everyone back to the Beyond Hormones podcast. I'm pretty psyched to be here with another non-provider. You know, typically we talk to providers who are talking about their journey in business, but today we have Mike Dannheim, and he is going to talk about business, but also something different. I'm not even going to give it away. I'm going to have you, Mike, introduce yourself and just give us a couple of minutes of who you are, what you've been doing, and what we're going to talk about today.
Beautiful. Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity to be on here and join you with your community. Yeah, I'm Mike Dannheim. I'm the founder at Sensie, and I've been doing essentially executive coaching and healing work for about 20 years. And I've also been building technologies for about 15 years, consumer tech. I've had some big successes and some big failures in the tech space, and they've all been great learnings. But what I'm currently working on is an integration of those two things, which is the ability to make mental health measurable. And in that, really, really mental well-being measurable. So being able to maintain mental wellness and having the tools that we need in our pocket to essentially identify blind spots, psychological blind spots, so things that I'm unaware of that might be a source of stress, have the tools I need to know what to do with that. So how do I clear it, integrate it? And then the third piece, which is that translates to measurable psychological resilience. And what's cool about that from a health perspective and beyond hormones perspective is our ability to measure psychological resilience is the ability to measure the health of the nervous system. And from that place, be able to maintain well-being. So if there's a deviation in well-being, we can correct it before it becomes illness and disease.
Wow, that's awesome. I mean, I'm sure that measuring mental health got some of our listeners' ears perked up because they're probably thinking, like, how do I do that? But before we get into how we do that, let's learn a little bit about you. So, you used to be in, more the business side, more the investing side, and then you moved over into more the creation side. Was there a trigger? Was there something that happened that kind of had you make that switch?
Oh, yeah. Well, I've been building tech startups for about 15 years. So I helped build Groupon in the early days, and I led the international expansion for Groupon pre-IPO. And then I was also part of a company that was the predecessor to ChatGPT. It was called Grouper Social Club. It was out of New York City. And so I've always sort of been, for a while, I've been in these creative tech startups, and I'm just really passionate about trying to solve hard problems. And that last one, Grouper Social Club, it was we were trying to build a personalized concierge, which is what is now showing up in the world. And in that startup, it was a big success, but it actually failed in the end. And we had like so many users and lots of revenue and some of the smartest people in the world. And at the end of it, there was a lot of mental health challenges for myself, for other people. I reflected on it for a while and I saw it. which is the way mental health problems show up is there's a stressor on day one, we withhold it. We stuff it down, we don't deal with it. And then day 197, it becomes debilitating illness and disease. And the gap between onset and the actual disease manifesting is the challenge because in that window of time, we lose track of what the origin was, which is why
Mm,
therapy takes so long.
interesting.
And so when I saw that, I was like, oh, we got to go after that and create a solution because these phones we're carrying around in our back pockets know more about us than we do. So how do we use that information for the individual to help support them in their healing and their well-being? Um,
And we talked a few times, and I love how you mentioned Groupon and the precursor to ChatGPT, and then you just move on. Like these are huge organizations that you worked with, and kudos to you for all that you've done in this space. But you didn't mention the mindfulness coaching. So you do a lot of coaching too, right?
yeah, it's sort of what I do in technology as well. It's like a coaching element when I'm in there because it's just the curiosity and the asking lots of detailed questions. And so it works well in business and it works well in psychology. But my personal journey in mental health was, about 20 years ago, I had a traumatic brain injury from a car accident where I had amnesia and I had problems with short-term memory recall. And at the time, they didn't know as much about neuroplasticity. So they thought that I was going to be stuck. What was happening was you'd speak to me and I couldn't remember what you just said. And what was really weird was I had an out-of-body experience from the head trauma, and I didn't fully integrate into the body. So there's two versions of me.
Oh, wow.
There was the version of me in the body where I was like, and then there was a version of me out of the body, which was like, why can't I remember what Jody just said? And that led to debilitating anxiety and depression. And thank God I met a hippie guy who taught me how to meditate. His name was Martin. And through meditation, in a short window of time, about 4 to 6 months, my memory and concentration came back, my brain healed, and my life took off. And I had this like successful career in technology. And that led me very curious about consciousness, neuroscience, and the mind. So that curiosity while I was working in technology startups, my personal life, my bookshelves, full of lots of interesting books, as sure you do
Well, I
too.
bet.
And yeah, just been researching and finding the most effective techniques that help to integrate stress. Because that's what's missing in our healthcare system at the moment is the integration. Like the breathing techniques to sort of clear stress, those are really good, but they can leave you in loops. But there's processes and techniques where you can go into a stressor and collapse it so that the trigger is gone and it
Mhm.
expands what's called a stress threshold, meaning that you can be in the face of a stressor without getting stressed. And those are the techniques we're putting into the technology and what the techniques I'm trained in. They're really powerful.
Would you say that there are certain personality types that manage stress better and therefore are ultimately set up potential bigger losses in the future because they are ignoring it, as you just kind of said?
That's a interesting question, and I think the way you phrased it has a lot of different points that we should probably touch on. Because if I heard you, what I heard you say was, are there personalities that manage stress better? But then I heard you mention if they're pushing it off and thereby not dealing with it, so they're getting
Right.
set up for fail. So those are two different. I would separate those two things because in managing stress, really moving beyond managing stress, where we're treating stress as intelligence wanting to be known. We're living in a culture where we don't really have a relationship with what we call intelligence, which there's a natural current of intelligence within us. And so what we wind up doing is we stuff it, we drink it, we push it down, and we don't look at it. And it's information wanting to be known. And so when we move beyond managing stress into that relationship, the person who's working in that way, no matter what happens, no matter what comes, they're going to be okay
Interesting.
because they
I mean,
have
honestly,
this.
I ask this question almost selfishly because I personally am somebody who doesn't really get stressed. I call myself managing stress, but
Yeah.
I worry, because there's people around me in my life, my daughter, my husband, that don't deal with stress as well as I do, and I see that in their day-to-day life. Are they doing better because they're getting it out, or is someone like myself could like headed for a big breakdown maybe in 10 years? So with
Right.
your experience with doing coaching and working with other people, what have you seen?
Yeah, it's a great question. And I know what you're pointing to because, you see it in all different ways and shapes. And the weird thing about stress is it's something that all of us experience. So, like, let me zoom out on stress as a physiological thing. So, if I'm standing here and I'm cold and I go and get a sweater and I put it on, there was a stress response in my body to the cold that motivated me to go get a sweater and put it on.
Makes
And
sense.
putting that sweater on is extinguishing that stress response.
Right.
That stress response is a physiological neuromechanical pathway, right? So there's a muscle response and a chemical response from that stressor that's well defined, the different channels. So that's a stressor. The psychological side of stress, where let's use intimate relationships because that's typically a gold mine for psychological stressors.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. So, you know, let's just go with like husband, wife, right? So husband today or wife is, everything seems normal, but I'm holding on to a memory of something she said yesterday and now I'm pissed at her and now I get angry and I blow up. That's stress.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and so it takes these cunning shapes, and sometimes we want to stuff it down, pretend it doesn't exist. Sometimes there are people who are just like super even keel and they can cut right through it, and that's wonderful, and I think that those people are in really good positions to help hold space for other folks because, the model where we're telling people, just take a breath, or whatever that might be, like it's not really functional.
Right.
It tends to piss people off more.
Yeah.
So rather finding ourselves in this privileged position where if you're not one who's easily triggered to be able to be a safe space for other people who maybe are to reveal themselves in a way where they can see themselves. So in coaching, if that was the question, one of my primary roles is to just hold an environment where the person can be revealed, if that makes sense.
It does.
Where
Yeah.
they
So what I
can reveal themselves to themselves and without me interjecting or correcting or trying to change it.
Because what I'm hearing is that there's a difference between somebody who is like pushing down the physiological response to stress and someone who's actually just kind of letting it go,
That's
which is
right.
a perfect introduction now to let's talk about
Well,
Sensie. Oh, go ahead.
I want to grab that too because there's a third piece there, which is there's something called like there's dark shadow and light shadow is like the person who will let it go but doesn't draw boundaries, if you know what
What
I
do you mean
mean.
by that?
So there can be an example where we're like, oftentimes it's called spiritual bypassing. And what it means is that like people can be doing things that are absolutely objectionable and like should be stopped, but we don't want conflict, we avoid conflict, so we just allow it to happen. And we don't want to deal with it, so it's happening. And this can wreak havoc in our lives in that way.
Can you give an example?
Yeah, so it might be, and what we're talking about is so nuanced. So there can be
Yeah,
an
sure.
experience where like it's absolutely fine, but an example will be where, say, an employee is doing something that's just not right.
Mm,
But the this happens a lot in corporations, a lot where, hierarchy. So this person ranks above me, so therefore I'm not going to call it out because I'm
mm,
scared to speak truth. Not my truth, the truth, like the truth, which is that this is not right, it needs to be called out. And so that thing keeps happening. And the ability to speak truth with love is an art. It's an art
yeah.
form. And so sometimes when we go to speak truth, it looks dangerous. And so we recoil and we don't do it. And then we bypass. And this leads to mental health challenges down the road, if that makes sense.
It makes total sense. And it's also starting to now make sense in terms of the platform. So I was lucky enough to meet you, and you gave me the beta version of Sensi, and I got to use it and experience it. So can you share with everybody a little bit about how the technology of the phone meets the issues going on inside the body that is an indicator of stress or mental health? And then we can talk about like what we do with that.
Yeah. Awesome. Yeah. So and thank you so much for trying the technology and for
Yeah.
having me on here. The, so the smartphone has amazing sensors inside of it. And one of them is like a motion sensor where it can track movement and motion. It's like, you track your steps
Right.
or if you turn the phone, how the screen orients itself. It's doing that by a sensor internally inside the phone. And so we use that sensor to track gesture, a very specific gesture, and we're measuring muscle tension in relation to what you're thinking about. So how you feel in relation to what you're thinking about. And just to like zoom out for a second, scientifically, muscle tension is associated with the stress response of the nervous system. So it's one of the channels. So whenever we have a psychological stressor, there's gamma neurons. There's a lot of things that are going on underneath the hood that create stress, and tension is one of them. So we have this like tension response in the body, and we can assess that using the sensors in the phone. So what that does is we can then prompt you on the phone to think about a topic. You do the gesture, and then we can see if you're stressed or not stressed in relation to what you're thinking about, which can help you identify a source of stress. And then once you've identified that, have solutions to help you understand how to deal with it and integrate it. Like we were talking about, really choices, right? So if you want to just like clear it because you're in a rush and you want to get out of the stress response, have that
Right.
option, which is great. Those are great options. But then also have the deeper options where it's like, wow, this pattern with my wife or this pattern with my boss or the pattern with money, whatever these big, deeper triggered patterns are, we can integrate it so that we're no longer held by it.
I love that because I feel like so many of the solutions for our stressors or any of our mental health issues are the latter. It's
Mhm.
bigger, it's deeper. It's like, let's get to the source, let's resolve it. And oftentimes, I think people will not go down that path because they don't have the time or they don't have the wherewithal. But your product actually allows people to kind of let it go for the moment so that they can function. And then because they're doing it habitually, they may see patterns that they go, you know what? If I actually just resolve this at the source, then I would live a much cleaner life.
That's right. The majority of illness and disease, this is a hard fact, is from stress being unresolved.
Yeah.
Also, like the unfortunate experiences we have are typically due to unresolved stress. We get triggered, it gets built up, and we blow up. It's like sleep is a big one. That's
Mhm.
another one. You deal with the root, the mind will stop chattering and you'll have easier sleep. Anyways, lots of examples we could give, but
Yeah.
yeah.
So what are some of the kinds of things that Sensi does in terms of resolving? So the technology exists. Your body is reacting. You do the gesture as you're thinking of a topic. It's telling you you've got something going on. What are some of the things that Sensi says to the person so that they can resolve that either immediately or kind of guide them down the path of more long-lasting help?
Yeah, what I'm really excited about is we partnered with like world-class interventionists. And so instead of us coming up with ideas on how to clear them or mine, these world-class interventionists who have these really well-defined protocols that take, years of therapy into a single session. And so the way they do that is kind of like similar to something called EMDR, if you're familiar with it,
Mhm.
where it helps you to go into whatever the challenge is, identify its emotional cause, essentially excavate that emotional cause. You can do that through vision, you can do it through posture, but evoking the emotion to clear it. It's really wild because once you get the emotion out, you can't find it anymore. It's like it disappears. And the techniques take you through a process on how to do that. And then once you clear it out, pivoting to a beneficial emotion so that the memory is rewritten without the charge and you're free. And so we partnered with Dr. Eva Selhub from Harvard's Mind Body Institute, Dr. Ann Jensen, she's an Oxford PhD, a gentleman named Satyen Raja, who's been doing executive leadership work for like 35 years. And there are all these different techniques. And what we want to do, one thing I want to zoom out real quick that we all, I think, might be interested in solving is it's 2025, and we still don't know scientifically what interventions work well at scale to keep people well. And that's what we're going after is we've essentially mapped these very well developed protocols and now putting them into a technology that's accessible to everyone and then understanding how we can make recommendations so that people can thrive and have what they need to be well. So
So preventative wellness, mental health, well,
I would just change the name from preventative to proactive. And the
proactive.
reason being is that emotions regulate our immune system. And in preventative, you're trying to prevent so it still has fear in it.
Got it. Okay.
So proactive is these are the things I do to thrive, to feel good, to be well, so that we're not operating from fear. Fear is so insidious and so subtle. Yeah, it sounds trivial almost, but that's very real, the preventative approach.
What's so exciting about this is obviously in my world, I talk to a lot of hormone functional medicine physicians,
Yeah.
providers, and they all speak about the different areas of wellness that are important to take care of with their patients: sleep, hormones, metabolic, gut, and they talk about stress. But up to this point, there really aren't a lot of tools other than maybe like surveys or something like just talking. And a lot of tools they can use to help their patients see for themselves in some sort of a testing environment that says, no, this is an issue. This is something that we need to deal with.
Yeah.
What kind of responses have you been getting from the providers? I know that you're kind of on the newer side with Sensie, just got out of beta. So
Yeah.
what are some of the responses you've been getting from providers in terms of their using it with their patients?
Yeah, we're just coming to market now, and we're starting with a consumer app, and then we had also developed a web app for the providers. So we're just beginning that, but we're getting really good responses. Joshua Vogelstein, who runs the biomedical AI lab at Hopkins, gave us a really nice quote. It was in the Tampa newspaper, but it was basically saying that, Sensi will provide the tools that can help all Americans, everyone in the world, be able to deal with their own mental health issues and have what they need to thrive. And he advises the National Institute of Mental Health, which is a really
Wow.
big one, I think. Yeah, and then we're in talks now with some longevity clinics and just
Mhm.
exploring how the technology can help augment. Essentially, people are making significant investments in peptides and blood
Right.
draws, but these are quarterly, right? The technology being a tool between the quarterly blood draws to help support the upregulation of the nervous system so that the investment they're making in the peptides and the blood draws are being maintained through the use of the technology between the quarterly visits.
Also probably validating that the other treatments that the providers are recommending are actually working
Yeah,
because you
totally.
can see the
Totally.
improvement.
Yeah, 100%. I'm excited about that. And that's like future work too, because I think that the validation can go both ways, right? Where we start to see really interesting stuff in the blood work from the use of technology of Sensi and vice versa. I think there's a lot of exciting stuff there that we'll be able to do.
Can you talk a little bit about what the provider portal looks like? So we talked a lot about what the consumer uses, and I'm assuming that it's beneficial if the consumer's doing it daily or every other day. I'd like they're doing it quite a bit so that they can, track more information and help more. But what about the provider? What do they get?
Yeah. So right now the portal, you open it up, you set up an account, you put your information in, you can put your branding in, and then you get the ability to invite your patients in. So you have a little branded link. So when you drop the link to your client, when they click on it, it opens, it has your information on it with Sensi co-branded. And then when they accept and they start checking in, their data streams in. So you get real-time emotional data on your clients using the device they already have. And then another cool feature is you can build your branded packs of check-ins. So if you have like a check-in process you want them checking in on, it can be very personalized to your brand. And then when they check in on those packs, that data flows in too. So between sessions, being able to give them a tool that can help them in their thriving and their emotional well-being, and also getting real-time data. And something I'm excited there for the bigger institutions that might be using CPT codes is we found a bunch of reimbursable CPT codes. So just for the
Oh,
gesture, for every gesture taken as a biometric assessment, that provides new lines of revenue to the clinics.
could you explain a little bit more about what you said about the pack? So, like, if they have certain protocols that they want the patient to do, can you say more about that?
Yeah, checking in on so let's make it really tangible with like a client. So let's say you have like a professional athlete or a CEO, or you know what? Actually, we're in touch with an airline right now. That's a good one that I think can be applicable. So pilots, for example, for airplanes, they are stressed by four core things. It's feeling at peace with their workload, feeling supported by their co-pilots, feeling supported by their family, and then feeling well rested because they're always on the road and everything.
Right.
And right now, all we have is self-report, and a lot of research shows that self-report is very flawed.
Sure.
Um, and
They will lose
so,
their jobs.
yeah, yeah, exactly. So it's like, I'm good, I'm good, I'm good.
Yeah,
Uh,
exactly.
yeah, and we don't want them to lose their jobs either. But what we do want is there to be truth and then be able to provide help.
Absolutely.
And so with Sensi, they can biometrically check in with themselves to see what's going on, and then if there's stress around it, they can clear it. And one of the things that I think is really interesting is there's techniques that you can burn off fatigue. Like you can go into fatigue and burn it off and no longer feel fatigued. So like, I mean, because some of these things you might look at and be like, they can't do anything about being well rested right before the flight. If they're not well rested, like what are they gonna do? Technique for that. So that's like an example of a pack. Those statements are in the pack, and then it's branded by the airline that we're working with. And then the pilots now have the ability to inspect themselves. And that could be true for a doctor, a CEO, an athlete, because every person in their role have unique stressors. And so we can custom build these statements to help support them in their self-identifying and their self-actualization around integrating it as resilience.
Gotcha. Okay. So that's a very big use case. Let's bring this down to a more individual boutique clinic scenario. So you have a provider that owns a hormone clinic. They do, again, just sort of the basic wellness, and they don't really have the expertise in mental health. what would you recommend if they really wanted to bring this in? What would you recommend that they do? Is there certain training they should get, or they work with you and your company? How do they do that?
Yeah, we provide training as well with it. And, I really believe for these clinics you're referring to, it's the tool for stress management because it's an accessible stress biomarker. And so it's really just helping the individual client thrive around stress and the integration of stress. And we offer a suite of services. So we have the mobile app, we have the web app, and then we also do consulting services to help build it into the actual business unit so that it can be a functional tool that helps with client engagement, helping to keep clients in repeat business and supporting them in what matters most, which is their thriving and longevity.
So, one of the things I've seen over the last couple of years is tons of tools that keep coming out in the wellness space, and they're all phenomenal, but they all feel very siloed. So, what I would love to see is products like yours and companies like yours that sort of work with the provider to help them integrate it into beyond just use my tool, but if you're doing XYZ, like labs and peptides or weight loss, like here's how you integrate this into a whole plan so that we're not just selling one-offs because then the patient's going, I don't want to pay for that. I don't want to pay for that. I'll pay for this, but actually making more of a longevity package. So how could you guys support the individual practitioner to do that well in their practice?
I love that question. And that is like really what we're just in the exploration of right now. So we did years of research to build the biomarkers, and then we built out the platform, and now we're in the business conversations. And that is what we're looking to do and just build a world-class experience to help support the individual in their thriving.
Okay.
I would love to present myself as knowing the answer to that, and I could make something up, but
No,
I, what
that's
I think
not
was,
that's
I
not
think was
you.
totally, I think what's more interesting is, we're looking right now to partner with groups who care about that same outcome, which I know
Yeah.
there's lots out there. And from that place, come together and support their business, support their clients, and provide a new tool.
Okay, so we didn't talk about this in advance, but I'm going to throw this out there. Today is January 8th. That's the day that we're recording, January 8th, 2026. And this is podcast will come out in about a month or so. If someone's listening, they want to be that partner with you. They're really into this and they want to talk to you about how to bring it in. They're willing to do like a partnership so they can share feedback and you can dialogue. How would they get in touch with you to do that? Or do you even want them to do that?
Yeah, please reach out. Yes, we're here to be of service. We've got a growing team, a lot of cool things happening. My email address is Mike, M-I-K-E, at joinsensie, JOINSENSIE.com.
Okay.
So Mike at joinsensie.com, and maybe we
And
can
of
put the
course, it'll
contact.
be in the show notes because
I was just
most
saying, yeah,
people
maybe we can
either
put that on
ride,
here.
they're either
Yeah.
driving or they're working out or they're walking and they don't have a pen. So we'll definitely put this in the show notes. But so you are open to like, if a provider is listening to this, they're like, "Well, I really want to bring this in. I want to make this into something that's more like a package that, you guys want to talk to them to see how they're doing it. And then maybe you can help other clinics that way."
Yeah, would absolutely love that. And great opportunities for revenue shares and just figuring out how to help the end user thrive. So,
So is it okay if we get away from Sensi for a minute? I want
of
to ask you
course.
another question. So
Yeah.
obviously, you've been in business, you've been very successful in business for many years. You've done a lot of different things. And a lot of our listeners are either startups or they're in the first couple of years of their business. They may have never owned a business before, but they decided to open a clinic because they couldn't find a partner or any other facility wanted to do medicine the way they wanted to do it. What have you seen? Like, what are you seeing are some of the big barriers that clinicians bump into, and maybe some advice that you might give them so that they continue down the path of owning their business, but get some support from someone like you who's been around the block a couple of times?
Yeah, I think in sort of speaking to best practices, there's actually a longevity clinic I'm in talks with right now. And I think they've done a really great job and they're starting to really grow fast. And when I look at what they did well, that I think other doctors who are starting their own clinics could really benefit from, and it's going to sound hard, it's going to sound like a obvious thing that's hard, but it's very doable with all the networks we have these days, which is if you're a doctor, be the doctor. Be the doctor and be awesome at that and get a business partner or an operator, and figure out a relationship where they're dedicated to that on a performance basis, and then you can focus on servicing the clients. Because I think that what you just articulated is like where is the path burnout and dissatisfaction, which is trying to do it all, which, I've done that too. It's just not fun. No matter what your role is, like it's just not
Right.
a fun thing. There's lots of ways for those who don't know, you can set up equity agreements on a vesting basis. So if you bring in a business person and you're worried that they're going to like take over the business or, show up and not do anything, you can define all that and then give them a 4-year, 1-year vesting schedule. And what that means is that if you give them, say, 30% of the business or 5% of the business, whatever it is, that vests over a 4-year period. So they don't have the equity unless they fulfill their role over those 4 years. And each year it cliffs at a quarter, or 25% of what you've offered them. So doing it like that is really a good way to align both of your interests and also to give you some insurance in case they don't perform. You can get them out and get your equity back.
Yeah, that's excellent advice. And I swear to God, we did not discuss this in advance.
Oh,
That because that's what Accelerated Medical Practices does. We are the business arm for a lot of practitioners that we work with. And I love that advice because, and it doesn't just apply to business or marketing or any of those things that practitioners don't like to do. It applies to things like this, that if you know that mental health management, stress management is a part of the wellness package that you want to provide to your patients, don't try to figure it out yourself. Go and partner with companies that are doing that work so that
yeah.
they are bringing the best of the best to your clinic. And then you can offer your services at an elevated, way.
Yeah, it's well said. That's really well said. Yeah, I just in that the clinic that I'm referring to, I'm just watching them and I see the doctor being happy. He's focused and doing what he wants to be doing rather than having to do like the administrative side and the sales side and the marketing side. And I see the CEO is happy. And I just think that these emotional states, like happy sounds trivial, but like if you're not happy, why are you running your own business? Like,
Heck yeah.
yeah,
I
like,
agree with that so much. So
yeah.
much. So since we're on this line and it's just going so well, and I love everything that you're saying, what do you say to those practitioners that are like, but there's so much cool stuff? Like we just get back from A4M in December. There were 900 booths at this conference of the coolest shit you've ever seen in the wellness space.
Yeah.
And I had practitioners walking out with bundles and bundles of brochures, like, I'm doing all of this. I'm thinking, oh no, you're never going to do all of that. So, how would you coach a practitioner or a business owner to be like, okay, let's figure out what it is that you should be doing?
Yeah. I think this is a really beautiful one that I was coached on a long time ago, which is you've got to, if you are the provider and you are the business owner, it's your world that people are going to orbit inside of. So from that place, you need to define what you're providing. Don't let the market provide it. So that doesn't mean go and do your research, but it means that you have the expertise. People are coming to you because they are relying on your wealth of experience to filter all that and they don't want to show up and be offered all that. They want you to cherry pick the best of the best based on your expertise and provide that. The shiny object kills more companies, I think, than anything. There's so many shiny objects. It's so exciting and newness, and sometimes it's less about newness and just about what's effective and what's going to have the best outcome, right?
Yeah,
And saying
totally.
no more than you're saying
Saying no
yes,
more than yes. I love that answer. And I apologize to every device rep out there that's beating the streets
Uh,
because I see practitioners fall into the trap over and over again when somebody walks in the door. I always say if somebody comes to you to buy something and you didn't go research it first, your
yeah,
first answer should be no. It's not that it's a no forever, but your
yeah,
first answer should be no. And
yeah,
do your research, really think it through, come up with a little mini business plan because it's just, these reps are good and they know exactly how to share the results, both financially and patient outcomes, in a way that sounds so attractive.
yeah.
And you could easily become overwhelmed.
When something that's really interesting just to share as a best practice so Groupon, one of the things that helped us grow Groupon so fast was it was a bunch of young, like late 20-year-olds. And every deal that would show up, we would actually have a committee where we'd sit and we'd look at the deal and say, are you excited about this? And if we weren't excited about it, we threw it out.
Interesting.
Like, are you excited about this? And would you buy it? And if no one was buying it, then we were doing it. And thereby we got like the coolest deals that everyone wanted because we wanted it. And I think that in this longevity, the hormonal, space that we're
Hmm.
operating in, these practitioners, I'm assuming, are also healthy, right? And
Yes.
so what are you doing that's helping your health? And pick only the best things for yourself
Yeah.
and share that.
That's so cool.
So
That's
that
so
it
cool.
avoids the because your point, there's some really good salespeople out there. And like, fine, try their stuff, but if you're not going to be using it, toss it.
Yeah, that's really good advice. If you're not going to use it or you're
Yeah.
not currently using it, don't buy it. This is totally off topic, but I have to tell you something because every time you mention Groupon, this pops up. In 2011, my husband and I built a software as a service tool called Expect Referrals. And it was the first of its kind. It was a referral marketing system
Mm,
where automated referrals could happen for a business. And we used to call ourselves the Groupon of referral marketing.
nice. There you go. Maybe that's what brought us together. Who
And
knows?
maybe, like, yeah, something in the
Yeah,
universe that
yeah,
eventually Jody and Mike are going to
yeah,
connect.
yeah. That's
That's
so
so
funny.
cool.
That's,
So, what's the future for Sensi? What do you see?
um, a world of infinite possibilities.
Mm,
And that sounds lofty and dreamy, but the other side of a world where we're all treating stress as intelligence wanting to be known is a world of infinite possibilities. So the more we are embodied with stress as intelligence, the more choice we have.
yeah.
And what happens is when we are disassociated from stress, our brain goes binary. And so it's just this like, I'm gonna yell at her. I'm not gonna say anything. It's like there's a middle road there that's like way more interesting,
And healthy.
Yeah, exactly. And we have a culture that and this isn't like a conspiratorial. It's just a fact that somehow we lost track of, and we get split into these two choices here. I'm gonna drink it or I'm gonna fight.
Right.
Well, let's go into it and to see how interesting it is. And so from that place. I don't know what lies behind that, but I'm really interested in it. A world where we have functional mental health care, that people can have the tools they need to thrive, regardless of socioeconomic background.
And,
Um,
and I believe that to be true for you. It's our fourth conversation. I don't even remember how we connected. Somebody connected us. And this is our fourth conversation. That might sound a little like wooey, what you just said,
yeah,
but I
yeah,
truly believe with all of my heart that is your goal.
yeah, for sure. And also, I've seen it in my personal life. The
Mhm.
technology I'm building, I want it. That's
Yeah.
why I'm building it. So, like I said, I'm true to my word. I'm building something that I personally want. And the way it showed up for me was in building this. Like, I did lots of talks on stages around the world, and public speaking was brutal. I would get so much anxiety at first, and then I started to actually do the techniques, and now I can get on stage with ease. And that was not a possibility. Another one was I didn't like dealing with investors early on, and I
Interesting. You don't like any things that you're doing in your life.
yeah, I just don't, I just would rather be free. But that was a story that I was creating,
Yeah,
and the techniques helped me to clear that and integrate it, and to see that there's lots of great investors out there. My relationship with my wife, because of the techniques, has become extraordinary.
that's beautiful.
Yeah, and I'm not like trying to brag, but I am trying to say I wanted to give 3 examples of the possibilities that it's created for my life, so that it doesn't sound like grounded. I'm
Right.
not being egotistical.
I think in this case, you should brag. I think more people should brag about when they figure something out in their life and it
Yeah,
works.
yeah,
And you're the kind of guy that figures it out, it works, and then you do something to bring it to more people. And
yeah.
thank you for being that kind of guy.
Thanks. Yeah, I'm just really excited about it because it's like, wow, what's possible on the other side of this? Like,
Yeah.
wow, like I don't know. I just know that my life's gotten better and I hope that it can help others. And if it doesn't, I hope they give me feedback so that we can learn from it and eventually figure out how to make it awesome for them. So
All the ways that if you're listening, all the ways that you can connect with Mike will be in the show notes so that you can follow him, you can write to him, and you can definitely get more information about Sensi if it's something that you want to bring into your practice. We're going to be having a webinar coming up sometime in February, depending upon when you're listening to this. Of course, the recordings of our webinars are always in our accelerator. So if you miss it, you can go watch it. And I just cannot wait to see where Sensi is next year at this time because I believe it's going to be leaps and bounds and in tons of longevity and wellness clinics.
yes, let's do that together. And I look forward to helping us all thrive, helping myself
Yeah.
thrive more too, and learning in the process. So yeah, thank you,
Before
Jody.
I let you go,
Yeah.
on this podcast, I have a tradition. I completely stole this tradition from my favorite podcaster, who is Steve Bartlett. He does Diary of a CEO.
Oh
If you
yeah.
haven't listened to it, you definitely would like it. But he, at the end of his podcast, has asks a question to the guest that was asked by the last guest, but they don't know who you are.
Okay. That's so interesting. I like that. Yeah.
So I'm going to ask you a question. And it is, what's the biggest challenge you have faced diagnosing and treating a client in terms of complexity of their symptoms?
Oh wow. So first off, I'm not a medical doctor, so I don't do diagnosis, but I do coaching work. I've also been sober for 20 years, and so I worked with
Mm.
like bottom of the barrel alcoholics who are trying to get sober, and I've worked with schizophrenics inside there too. There was a neurotic guy out of New York that I worked with that I think was harder. But what was amazing in that was it was my own fear that was making him hard. And when I let go of what I thought about him, I actually discovered that he really wanted to get better. He was just showing up in crazy ways, and he didn't know what to do. And it was my fear about the neurotic behavior that was making it difficult for me, not for him. And when I stopped judging it as neurotic, I just saw like he's just like super stressed, and then by letting go of that label in my head, I was able to be with him as a human to another human, and I think that helped him to soften, if that makes sense.
Totally makes sense. And I never use this question as a way to teach the listener something, but I'm going to do that
Mhm.
because I truly believe in creating a work culture. Like if you own a business and your staff's happiness is the number one thing that you should focus on to make your business successful, to make you happy, all of that stuff. What you just said can translate into managing people. Like
Yeah, yeah,
people show up how they show up, and
right,
inherently 9% of people are good.
totally.
But they show up messed up sometimes because of what happened in their past or what happened that
Yeah.
morning or whatever. And if you just let go of your reaction to it and just relate to them as the human being that you originally hired on day one that you fell in love with
Right.
and get to whatever's going on, then you can solve any problem and you'd have like minimal turnover in your practice. So I love what you just said.
Yeah, and what you're pointing to is so powerful because that's most of psychological stress is an image or a story that we have about a thing. So the thing could be so much different than what's going on inside of us, right? So
Yeah.
literally letting that go, like you're saying, and being present with what is. Yeah, it's a different world.
I feel like we need a part two. Like we have to hang up, but I feel like we need a part two so that we can like solve the rest of the problems out there. No, I'm just kidding. It's been so much fun listening to you and talking to you and hearing your perspective on things. And I'm without a doubt and confident that people who are listening have stayed to the end of the podcast, first of all, to hear everything that you had to say and have gotten value from this. So thank you.
Well, thank you. You're an awesome interviewer, and I
Oh,
really
thanks.
appreciate everything you share too. So a lot of good value here, and a lot of good learnings both ways. So thank you so much for having me on.
Absolutely. Well, we're definitely gonna have to do this again, maybe in 6 months,
Yeah.
and so that you can tell everybody how Sensie's going and all the
Yes.
clinics that it's in and what people's results they're getting. But I'm glad to have you on here at the beginning because there are many practitioners out there that want to get in the bottom floor of something as revolutionary and transformative as this. So, guys, if you're listening, this is your chance. And if you're not an early adopter, then check back, in September, and we're gonna do a follow-up to see how things are going.
100%. I look forward to that. Thank you so much, Jody.
All right. Thank you. Thank you for listening to Beyond Hormones, the business of wellness. I hope that you're walking away with fresh ideas and real strategies you can use to grow your practice with profit and purpose. If you enjoyed today's episode, be sure to follow the show so you never miss a conversation. And if something you heard today resonated with you, do me a favor, share this episode with a friend or a colleague. It's one of the best ways you can support the show, and it might be exactly what they need to hear right now. If you want even more tools and support, go ahead and head over to acceleratedmedicalpractices.com. Until next time, keep doing the work that matters. Your patients need you, and I am cheering you along every step of the way.